Hello, and welcome to episode 47 of Uncovering the Corners of the World podcast. I'm your host, Karina Kosmala. Using research and my personal experiences, where I actually set foot in some of these places, I'll be describing some of the unknown attractions in both the U.S. and around the world. This week, we are traveling to Virginia. It's nicknamed the Old Dominion State. Virginia borders West Virginia, Maryland, Tennessee, Kentucky, and North Carolina. Virginia became the 10th state of the United States on June 25, 1788. Its capital is Richmond, but its largest city is Virginia Beach. An interesting fact about Virginia is that George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, Zachary Taylor, and Woodrow Wilson were born in Virginia. Our first attraction takes us both above and underwater. Considered to be the world's largest bridge tunnel complex, the Chesapeake Bay Tunnel Bridge is a 17.6-mile bridge that first opened on April 15, 1964. The bridge connects Virginia's Eastern Shore and Southampton roads. Specifically, the bridge connects Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, and Portsmouth. Prior to the construction of the bridge, a ferry service transported people and vehicles from Virginia's Eastern Shore and the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. These ferry services would only carry 50 to 60 cars at a time, and it took 90 minutes. The Chesapeake Bay Tunnel Bridge crosses the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay with stops along the way that show a scenic overlook. Part of the bridge travels underwater through a tunnel with a depth of 25 to 100 feet. The tunnels were built by digging a hole or a ditch in the sand and lining the tunnel pieces underwater. Above water, ships are allowed to freely pass through in and out of the bay area. Not only did this bridge receive awards for its engineering, it also served as one of the filming locations for the 2006 movie Mission Impossible 3. For our next stop on this trip, we take a modern drink in the Distillery of the First President. Located at 5513 Mount Vernon Memorial Highway in Alexandria, Virginia, is George Washington's distillery. George Washington, the first President of the United States, owned a distillery in 1799 and made almost 11,000 gallons of whiskey. James Anderson, a Scottish farm manager who had experience in distilling alcohol, persuaded Washington to open a distillery using the Mount Vernon's crops, his grist mill, and water. A grist mill is a mill used for grinding grain. Washington's grist mill produced 5,000 to 8,000 pounds of flour and cornmeal each day. Washington opened a distillery with the intention of earning a little more money, but he didn't have any experience in making alcohol. During the 1810s, 3,600 distilleries were in Virginia. However, George Washington's was the largest distillery in the nation at that time. The whiskey that was made was not bottled, branded, or aged. Instead, the whiskey was poured in wooden barrels and sent to merchants. His whiskey was made using 60% rye, 5% malted barley, and 35% corn. And some of his whiskeys included other types of flavorings like cinnamon. Whiskey was the popular choice of alcohol after the American Revolution, while before the American Revolution, rum was the favored alcohol. Rum also proved to be more expensive to make because it required molasses from the British West Indies. Today, visitors can tour the distillery. The buildings are reconstructed since in 1814 the distillery building burned down and the other buildings were falling apart. Our last attraction for this week takes us to 201 Hunter Street in Waverly, Virginia, to the first and probably the only peanut museum in the United States. The first peanut museum is a part of the Miles B. Carpenter Folk Art Museum and presents equipment, images, and machinery used for producing peanuts. Peanuts are not an American crop, but to have originated from Brazil or Peru. Explorers brought peanuts to Africa, and from Africa the peanuts were brought on ships with the slaves in the 1700s. Peanut farming rose in popularity after the Civil War. Today, Waverly, Virginia, is the same place the museum is located, holds the world's largest peanut market. The Old Dominion Peanut Company opened in 1880 in Waverly, and it was the first business to sell peanuts. Their peanuts were first sold to P.T. Barnum, who then started to advertise the peanuts at his circuses. The rest of the Miles B. Carpenter Folk Art Museum presents wood sculptures made by the artists, as well as art from other artists from the Sussex, Surrey, Prince George counties, and Petersburg Tri-City area. Miles B. Carpenter began carving wooden sculptures in the 1940s up until 1955, where he started selling roadside ice, soda, and produce, but did make his own 200-pound watermelon slice sign to attract customers. It wasn't until 1972 that Lester Van Winkle, a professor at Virginia Commonwealth University, bought some of his pieces. His art pieces were first displayed in 1974 at the Anderson Gallery of Virginia Commonwealth University. The Miles B. Carpenter Folk Art Museum is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is a Virginia Historic Landmark. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you want to check out more information about Virginia, visit the website history.com. If you're interested in learning more about the Chesapeake Bay Tunnel Bridge, visit the website cbbt.com/aboutus. If you're curious about the George Washington Distillery, visit the website mountvernon.org. Lastly, if you want to learn more about the first peanut museum, check out the website milesbcarpentermuseum.org. And if you want to learn more about peanuts, visit the website aboutpeanuts.com and peanutsusa.com. Have a great week.